The sound of Mr. Johnson's head hitting the polished linoleum floor echoed through Jefferson Elementary's main hallway, like a gunshot. Blood pooled beneath his temple as Officer Martinez pressed his knee into the teacher's back. Metal handcuffs clicking shut around wrists that had spent the morning helping third graders learn multiplication tables. "Please, Mr. Johnson gasped, his voice barely audible above the chaos of screaming children and shouting adults. "There's been a mistake." 20 minutes earlier, the hallways had been filled with the gentle hum of learning. Room 3B buzzed with the quiet concentration of 8-year-olds working through math problems, their pencils scratching against worksheets, while autumn sunlight streamed through tall windows. Marcus Johnson moved between the desks with practiced ease, his warm smile encouraging struggling students, and his patient voice guiding them through difficult concepts. At 32, he had been teaching for 8 years, and Jefferson Elementary felt like home. "Mr. Johnson, I don't understand this one," whispered Emma, a shy girl with pigtails, who always sat in the front row. Her small hand pointed to problem number 7 on her worksheet. "Let's work through it together," Mr. Johnson said, crouching beside her desk. His voice carried the gentle authority that had made him beloved among students and parents alike. "What do we know about multiplication? Remember, it's just addition repeated multiple times." The classroom felt safe and warm, filled with colorful posters about kindness and academic achievement. Student artwork decorated the walls, and a reading corner with soft cushions invited quiet exploration of books. This was Mr. Johnson's sanctuary, a place where he had watched hundreds of young minds blossom over the years. Parents requested him specifically for their children. The principal had nominated him for Teacher of the Year 3 times running. But outside in the school parking lot, Karen Whitfield sat in her silver SUV with her phone pressed against her ear, her voice shaking with manufactured panic. 911. "What's your emergency?" came the dispatcher's professional tone. "There's a teacher abusing children at Jefferson Elementary," Karen screamed into the phone, her face flushed with the kind of righteous anger that had become her signature. "Room 3B. He's hurting them, and they're crying for help. You need to get here now." The dispatcher's fingers flew over her keyboard. "Ma'am, can you provide more details about what you're witnessing?" "I can see through the window," Karen continued, her lie flowing as smoothly as water. "He's got his hands on the children, and they look terrified. One of them is crying. This is an emergency. Send every unit you have." Within 3 minutes, the first patrol car screamed into the school parking lot, its siren wailing like a banshee. 2 more units followed, their red and blue lights painting the brick facade of Jefferson Elementary in urgent, pulsing colors. Officer Martinez led the charge through the main entrance, his hand resting on his service weapon as Principal Williams met them in the lobby. "Officers, what's going on?" Principal Williams asked, her face pale with confusion. "We haven't called for any assistance." "We received a report of child abuse in progress," Officer Martinez said grimly. "Room 3B, we need access immediately." Principal Williams' heart sank. Room 3B was Marcus Johnson's classroom, and she knew with absolute certainty that whatever was happening, it wasn't what the caller described. But protocol demanded compliance, and the officers were already moving down the hallway with purpose that brooked no argument. Inside room 3B, Mr. Johnson was helping Tommy Rodriguez sound out a difficult word when the door burst open with such violence that several children screamed. Officer Martinez filled the doorframe, his presence imposing and threatening in the peaceful classroom environment. Behind him came Officer Chen and Officer Thompson, their faces set in grim lines of assumed authority. "Step away from the children," Officer Martinez commanded, his voice booming in the small space. "Keep your hands where we can see them." Mr. Johnson straightened slowly, his mind racing to understand what was happening. The children in his care looked terrified, their young faces turning between their teacher and the uniformed officers who had invaded their safe space. "Officers, I'm Marcus Johnson, the teacher here. Is there some kind of emergency?" "Turn around and put your hands behind your back," Officer Martinez ordered, already reaching for his handcuffs. "You're under arrest for suspected child abuse." The words hit Mr. Johnson like a physical blow. Child abuse. There must be some mistake. These children are fine. We're just doing math lessons. But Officer Martinez was already moving, trained in rapid response to perceived threats. When Mr. Johnson took a step backward in shock, the officer interpreted it as resistance. The takedown was swift and brutal. Mr. Johnson's head struck the floor with that sickening crack, and blood began pooling immediately. The children erupted in screams and tears. Emma, the shy girl with pigtails, began sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "Don't hurt Mr. Johnson," she cried. "He didn't do anything wrong." Tommy Rodriguez, the boy who had been struggling with reading, threw himself between the officers and his teacher. "Leave him alone. Mr. Johnson is nice. He helps us." Officer Chen gently but firmly moved Tommy aside. "It's okay, son. We're here to protect you." "But you're hurting him," Tommy wailed, pointing at the blood spreading beneath their teacher's head. "Mr. Johnson never hurts anybody." Principal Williams arrived at the classroom door just in time to witness the aftermath of the arrest. Her face went ashen as she saw Marcus Johnson on the floor, handcuffed and bleeding, while 23 third graders sobbed in terror around the room. This was her worst nightmare made manifest. "Officer Martinez, I need to understand what's happening here," she said, trying to keep her voice steady for the sake of the children. "Mr. Johnson is one of our most respected teachers. The allegation you received must be mistaken." "We responded to a credible report of child abuse in progress," Officer Martinez replied, hauling Mr. Johnson to his feet. "The caller witnessed inappropriate contact between this individual and multiple students." Mr. Johnson swayed slightly as blood trickled down his forehead. "Principal Williams, please help me explain to these officers that there's been a terrible mistake. I was helping the children with their math homework." The children's cries grew louder, their voices a chorus of defense for their beloved teacher. "He was helping Emma with multiplication," shouted Sarah Kim from the back of the room. "He always helps us when we don't understand." "Mr. Johnson gives us stickers when we do good work," added Michael Peterson, his face streaked with tears. "He reads us stories every Friday." But the officers had protocol to follow. Officer Thompson was already radioing for an ambulance to treat Mr. Johnson's head injury, while Officer Chen began the process of clearing the classroom. "We need all students evacuated immediately," he announced. "This is now a crime scene." The evacuation turned Jefferson Elementary into bedlam. Teachers rushed to collect their students while parents began arriving in increasing numbers, drawn by the flashing lights and emergency vehicles. The local news van appeared within an hour, its satellite dish extending like a mechanical flower, seeking signal to broadcast the unfolding drama to the entire metropolitan area. Karen Whitfield stood among the crowd of concerned parents, her face a mask of false concern. She had positioned herself strategically near the news reporter, ready to provide her eyewitness account of the terrible scene she claimed to have observed. Her son Bradley stood beside her, confused and frightened by the chaos his mother had unleashed. "I saw it with my own eyes," Karen told the reporter, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. "That man was putting his hands on those poor children. Thank God I called when I did. Or who knows what might have happened." The reporter, a young woman named Jessica Chen, who had been covering education beats for 2 years, listened with growing skepticism. Something about Karen's story didn't align with what she was observing. The children being evacuated weren't showing signs of trauma from abuse. They were crying for their teacher, begging to know if Mr. Johnson was okay. "Mommy, why did they hurt Mr. Johnson?" Bradley asked his mother, tugging on her sleeve. "He's nice to everyone. He helped me with my science project last month." Karen's jaw tightened imperceptibly. "Bradley, adults understand things that children don't. Mr. Johnson wasn't being appropriate with the students." But Bradley shook his head vigorously. "That's not true, Mr. Johnson never does anything bad. He just helps us learn stuff and makes learning fun." Across the parking lot, paramedics were loading Mr. Johnson into an ambulance. Despite his head injury and the shock of his arrest, he managed to call out to his students who were being led to the gymnasium. "It's going to be okay," he shouted, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I'll see you all soon." The investigation began immediately. Detective Rivera, a 15-year veteran with the Child Crimes Unit, arrived within 2 hours to begin interviewing witnesses. Her experience had taught her to approach such cases with both urgency and skepticism, understanding that false accusations could be as damaging as real abuse. She started with the children, conducting age-appropriate interviews in the presence of school counselors and parents. Every single student in room 3B told the same story. Mr. Johnson had been helping them with math, moving around the classroom in his usual supportive manner, when police officers burst in and arrested him for no apparent reason. He was being nice to Emma because she was having trouble with her multiplication. 8-year-old Destiny Washington explained, her young voice steady despite her tears. "Mr. Johnson always helps us when we don't understand something. That's what teachers do." Detective Rivera made careful notes, her suspicions growing with each consistent account. "Did Mr. Johnson ever touch you or any other students inappropriately?" she asked gently. Destiny shook her head emphatically. "No, never. Sometimes he puts his hand on our shoulder when he's helping us read. But my mom said that's okay, because teachers are allowed to do that. He never does anything weird." The pattern continued through all 23 interviews. Not a single child reported any inappropriate behavior from Mr. Johnson. Instead, they painted a picture of a caring educator who went above and beyond to ensure their academic and emotional success. Meanwhile, the school's security footage was being carefully reviewed. Jefferson Elementary had installed a comprehensive camera system 3 years earlier, and every classroom had multiple angles of coverage. The video from room 3B during the time of the alleged incident showed exactly what the children had described: a normal math lesson, with a teacher providing individualized help to students who needed it. Detective Rivera watched the footage 3 times, looking for any behavior that could be construed as inappropriate. She found none. Mr. Johnson's interactions with students were professional, caring, and entirely appropriate for an elementary school environment. The only physical contact occurred when he briefly placed a supportive hand on Emma's shoulder while helping her with a math problem, a gesture that lasted less than 5 seconds and was clearly educational in nature. But the damage had already been done. The evening news led with the story of the arrest, complete with footage of Mr. Johnson being loaded into an ambulance while children cried in the background. Social media exploded with speculation and judgment. much of it tinged with racial undertones that made Detective Rivera's stomach churn. The school district placed Mr. Johnson on administrative leave pending the investigation, a standard procedure that felt like a punishment to the man who had dedicated his career to education. He sat in his small apartment that evening, his head bandaged and his heart broken, watching his reputation crumble on television screens across the city. His phone rang constantly with calls from friends, colleagues, and reporters seeking comment. The only call he answered was from his mother, whose voice carried the weight of generations of struggle and resilience. "Marcus, baby, you hold your head high," she said firmly. "The truth always comes to light eventually." But the truth seemed buried beneath an avalanche of assumption and prejudice. Parents began pulling their children from Jefferson Elementary, afraid to leave them in an environment they perceived as unsafe. The school board called emergency meetings to address the crisis, while teachers and staff struggled to explain to students why their favorite educator was suddenly gone. It was Bradley Whitfield who provided the first crack in his mother's carefully constructed lie. 3 days after the incident, during a counseling session with Dr. Martinez, the school psychologist, the boy broke down in tears. "I don't understand why my mom said those things about Mr. Johnson," he sobbed. "She wasn't even looking in the window when she called the police. She was texting on her phone and getting mad about my grades." Dr. Martinez leaned forward gently. "Bradley, can you tell me more about what happened in the car with your mom?" The 8-year-old wiped his nose on his sleeve. "Mom got my report card yesterday, and she was really angry because I got a D in math. She kept saying it was Mr. Johnson's fault for not teaching me right. Then she made that phone call and told lies." The counselor's heart raced as she realized the implications of Bradley's revelation. "Bradley, when your mom called the police, was she actually looking into Mr. Johnson's classroom?" "No," the boy said definitively. "We were parked by the front of the school, and you can't see into room 3B from there. Mom was just really mad about my grades and wanted to get Mr. Johnson in trouble." Dr. Martinez immediately contacted Detective Rivera with Bradley's account. Within hours, investigators were conducting a more thorough examination of the timeline and circumstances surrounding Karen's 911 call. Phone records showed that she had called the school earlier that morning, demanding a conference about Bradley's failing math grade, a request that had been denied due to Mr. Johnson's busy schedule. The investigation revealed a pattern of escalating harassment. Karen had been sending increasingly aggressive emails to both Mr. Johnson and Principal Williams for 3 weeks, blaming the teacher for Bradley's academic struggles and demanding that her son be moved to what she called a more competent educator. Her emails grew more threatening over time. "If you people don't start taking my concerns seriously, I'll find ways to make you pay attention," she had written in one particularly venomous message sent just 2 days before the false 911 call. The security footage from the school parking lot sealed Karen's fate. Cameras clearly showed her SUV positioned near the main entrance, with no sightline to room 3B. The timestamp on the footage matched exactly with her 911 call, proving that she could not have witnessed the abuse she reported. Moreover, additional footage showed Karen's behavior before making the call. She sat in her vehicle for nearly 30 minutes, repeatedly checking her phone and growing visibly agitated. At one point, she got out of her SUV and walked toward the school building, apparently trying to peer through windows, but the angle and distance made observation of specific classrooms impossible. Detective Rivera had seen enough cases to recognize vindictive behavior when she encountered it. Karen Whitfield had weaponized the child protection system to attack a teacher who had become the focus of her parental frustrations. The consequences of her false report had traumatized children, destroyed a man's reputation, and wasted significant law enforcement resources. On Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after Mr. Johnson's arrest, Detective Rivera arrived at Karen's house with a warrant. The suburban home sat behind a perfectly manicured lawn, its facade presenting an image of respectability that masked the poisonous intent of its primary resident. Karen answered the door in her bathrobe, coffee mug in hand, clearly not expecting the visit. "Detective, what brings you here?" she asked, her voice carrying false sweetness that didn't reach her eyes. "Karen Whitfield, you're under arrest for filing a false police report, inciting public panic, and criminal defamation," Detective Rivera said, producing her handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent." The color drained from Karen's face as the reality of her situation crashed over her. "This is ridiculous. I reported what I saw. You can't arrest someone for trying to protect children." "Ma'am, we have security footage proving you could not have witnessed the events you described," Detective Rivera replied calmly. "We also have witness testimony from your son, confirming that you fabricated the entire incident." Karen's coffee mug shattered on the floor as her hands began to shake. "Bradley doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just a child." "Children often make the most reliable witnesses," the detective observed. "They tend to tell the truth without the complex motivations that drive adult deception." As Karen was led away in handcuffs, her neighbors emerged from their homes to witness the spectacle. The same woman who had appointed herself the moral guardian of the school community was now being arrested for the very crime she claimed to fight against. The news of Karen's arrest spread through the community like wildfire. Parents who had supported her initial accusations began to question their assumptions. Social media posts defending Mr. Johnson multiplied rapidly, with former students and colleagues sharing stories of his dedication and kindness. The district attorney's office moved swiftly to prosecute Karen's case. The evidence was overwhelming: security footage, witness testimony, phone records, and her own threatening emails created an airtight case for multiple felony charges. The D.A., Patricia Gonzalez, had seen too many lives destroyed by false accusations to show mercy. Mrs. Whitfield's actions represent a particularly cruel form of violence, Gonzalez announced at a press conference. "She weaponized our child protection systems to destroy an innocent man's life and traumatize the very children she claimed to be protecting. This prosecution will send a clear message that such behavior will not be tolerated in our community." Mr. Johnson was immediately reinstated to his position with full back pay and benefits. The school district issued a public apology for their handling of the situation, though many felt their response had been too quick to assume guilt rather than investigating thoroughly before taking action. His return to Jefferson Elementary was triumphant. Students who had been crying for a week suddenly had their sunshine back. They made welcome back posters and cards, their artwork covering every inch of wall space in room 3B. Parents who had initially doubted him now lined up to apologize and express their support. "Mr. Johnson, I'm so sorry we didn't defend you from the beginning," said Maria Rodriguez, Tommy's mother, tears streaming down her face. "We should have known better. Tommy has been heartbroken without you here." Emma's mother, Susan Wright, brought flowers and a homemade apple pie. "Emma hasn't stopped asking when you were coming back," she explained. "She said you were the best teacher she ever had, and I should have trusted her judgment over some stranger's accusations." The emotional reunion between Mr. Johnson and his students was captured by local news cameras, providing a stark contrast to the footage of his arrest. Children hugged their teacher carefully, mindful of his healing head injury, but desperate to welcome him home. the classroom filled with laughter for the first time since the incident. "Did you miss us, Mr. Johnson?" asked Destiny Washington, her smile bright enough to power the entire school. "Every single day," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "But I always knew I'd be back, because this is where I belong." Karen's trial began 3 months later and lasted only 2 days. The evidence against her was so compelling that her own defense attorney advised her to accept a plea bargain. She refused, maintaining her innocence even as witness after witness testified to her vindictive behavior and the fabrication of her claims. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges. Judge Harrison, a stern woman known for her firm stance on crimes that victimize children, showed no leniency during sentencing. "Mrs. Whitfield, your actions represent a betrayal of the trust our community places in parents to act in good faith," Judge Harrison declared. "You traumatized innocent children, destroyed a dedicated educator's reputation, and wasted precious law enforcement resources that should have been available for real emergencies. Your sentence reflects the serious nature of these crimes." Karen received 3 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay restitution covering Mr. Johnson's medical expenses, lost wages, legal fees, and damages for emotional distress. The total amount exceeded $200,000, effectively bankrupting her family. Additionally, the family court suspended Karen's parental rights, placing Bradley in the temporary custody of his father, who had filed for emergency divorce upon learning of his wife's actions. The boy would receive counseling to help him process his mother's betrayal and the chaos she had created. The civil lawsuit filed by Mr. Johnson's attorneys resulted in an even larger financial judgment. The court found that Karen's actions constituted intentional infliction of emotional distress and defamation per se, awarding damages that would ensure she remained financially responsible for her crimes for decades to come. But perhaps the most meaningful consequence came from the community itself. 6 months after the incident, Jefferson Elementary organized a celebration of diversity and excellence in education. Mr. Johnson was honored as the guest speaker, addressing a packed auditorium filled with students, parents, colleagues, and community members who had learned valuable lessons about truth, prejudice, and the importance of supporting good people during difficult times. This experience taught me that darkness can never overcome light when good people choose to stand together. Mr. Johnson told the assembled crowd, "Yes, I was hurt by false accusations and the rush to judgment that followed. But I was healed by the love and support of this community, by students who never stopped believing in me, and by colleagues who fought for truth even when it was difficult." The audience rose in thunderous applause, many wiping away tears as they reflected on how close they had come to losing an exceptional educator to one person's vindictive lies. The students from room 3B sat in the front row, beaming with pride at their teacher's courage and grace. Bradley Whitfield, now living with his father and thriving under the care of a stable parent, raised his hand during the question period. "Mr. Johnson, I want to say I'm sorry my mom did those bad things to you. You're the best teacher I ever had, and I hope you can forgive me." Mr. Johnson stepped down from the podium and walked to where the boy was sitting. He knelt down and looked directly into Bradley's eyes, his voice gentle but firm. "Bradley, you have nothing to apologize for. You were brave enough to tell the truth when it mattered most. That took real courage, and I'm proud of you." The boy hugged his teacher tightly, a gesture that symbolized healing and hope for everyone present. The community had learned hard lessons about the presumption of innocence, the danger of false accusations, and the critical importance of supporting good people when they face unjust attacks. 1 year later, Mr. Johnson received the State Teacher of the Year award, recognition that his colleagues agreed was long overdue. He used his acceptance speech to advocate for better protections for educators falsely accused of misconduct and more thorough investigation procedures before destroying careers and lives. Room 3B continued to be one of the most requested classrooms at Jefferson Elementary. Parents who had initially pulled their children from the school returned, bringing their siblings and neighbors' children to learn from the teacher who had shown such grace under pressure. Mr. Johnson's waiting list extended for years, testament to the respect he had earned through his dignity during crisis. The incident became a case study in education law courses, demonstrating the vulnerability of teachers to false accusations and the importance of due process in protecting both children and educators. Policy changes at both the district and state level ensured that future allegations would be investigated more thoroughly before destroying lives and careers. Karen served her full sentence, showing no remorse or understanding of the damage she had caused. Her ex-husband and son moved to another state, seeking a fresh start away from the notoriety of her actions. Bradley flourished in his new environment, becoming an advocate against bullying and false accusations among his peers. As for Mr. Johnson, he remained at Jefferson Elementary for many more years, touching thousands of young lives with his patience, wisdom, and unwavering belief in the potential of every child. The classroom that had once been a crime scene became a sanctuary of learning and growth, proof that truth ultimately prevails over lies and love conquers hate. The walls of Room 3B still display student artwork and achievement certificates, but now they also hold a special plaque from the community recognizing Mr. Johnson's courage and dedication. It reads simply, "To an educator who shows us that integrity and kindness are the greatest lessons of all." Every morning, as sunlight streams through those same windows where Karen claimed to witness abuse that never happened, Mr. Johnson greets his students with the same warm smile that had made him beloved before the ordeal. The children who sit in those desks learn more than math and reading. They learn about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of standing up for what's right. And in a classroom where false accusations once brought chaos and pain, truth and justice ultimately created something beautiful, a community united in support of excellence, integrity, and the unwavering belief that good people deserve to be protected and celebrated.